So how did we get to Richard Allen as a suspect in this case? I'm going to tell you all about how that came about in today's episode. Hello, everybody. Let me get the right screen going here. Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, whenever it is you're watching this. It's morning here. My schedule is all discombobulated. I'm not even going to tell you what time it is. So, barely morning. So, let me just catch everybody up here. This is the trial of Richard Allen, the Delphi murder case. He is on trial for the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. They were 13 and 14 years old. They had a beautiful day off from school, decided they would go hiking on the Monon High Bridge Trail, and their sister dropped them off. A couple hours later, when Dad came to pick them up, they didn't show up. They didn't respond to phone calls. A search ensued, first by the parents and family and friends, and then the police got involved. That search ended around 2 a.m. the following day. They resumed searching about between 6:30 and 7:30 that morning, and their bodies were discovered not far from the bridge, but on the other side of the creek, the north side of the Deer Creek. Anyway, both of their throats had been slashed, and they were strategically placed at the scene in like a V form with these sticks on top of them. Not a lot of sticks like you would use to maybe conceal a body. One of them had 3 sticks, one of them had 2 sticks, sort of strategically placed. More on that to come. So, day 6 of the testimony, I believe. Now, I could be getting some of this mixed up. I'm just trying to get you guys caught up. So, we're going to talk about Kathy Shark. She takes the stand. She's been a Delphi resident for 40 plus years. She was out of town when the murders occurred. When she returned to town, she decided she would volunteer to assist with the investigation. So she retired. So she said, let me see if I can assist them with the investigation. So the task that they gave her was to be the receptionist and take any tips that might come in. So apparently this investigation was so large. She said there was like 50 plus officers investigating this crime that they took over some abandoned building and worked out of there for a period of time till things slowed down. So she would take these phone calls of tips and emails of tips and forward them to the investigating officers. That was her job. So when what the officers would do is they would take the tips, and the ones that were credible, the ones that they thought might lead to something, they investigated them, and till they ran out, till the lead ran cold. And then they would put them in a file folder and put them in a banker's box. So these banker's boxes started piling up. So Kathy goes and buys 5 file cabinets. 5 huge file cabinets. We don't even use file cabinets anymore, but she filled them up with these boxes. Yeah. But she would try to organize the boxes, and she said, in a way that made them accessible. So she puts them in the file cabinets. Eventually the tips start slowing down, and she was given another task. Can you enter the narrative summaries of the leads into a database? So she starts doing that. This takes her like 2 years. In September of 2020, she was tasked now with scanning everything into the database. She said there were over 1,400 tips. So in 2022, she runs across this box, just kind of out of, this random box. That was, someone had numbered some kind of numbering system in this, their own numbering system in this box. But the box, it was in a file drawer somewhere, but it wasn't one that she had ever seen. So it was filled with tips and leads. So she starts entering that. This is where they found the report of Richard Allen. Only it wasn't filed under Richard Allen. It was filed under Richard Allen White Man. Where did that come from? And this file had been created in February of 2017. So what happened was Richard Allen self-reported. He came in or called, we don't know which, and said, hey, I was on the Mona and High Bridge Trail the day those girls went missing. I saw 3 girls. That was his tip. So we're going to tell you how that was followed up here in a minute. But the folder, apparently when the leads ran out, they would follow the lead to its conclusion. They would mark the file as cleared. This file was marked as cleared. Now, here's the strange thing. The judge allowed this file folder to be admitted into evidence, despite the fact that it's probably hearsay. Yeah, just saying. More stuff about the judge, right? And this wackiness that's going on in this courtroom. And I do need to tell you that this is not, don't look for this trial. It is not on YouTube. The judge is not allowing cameras in the courtroom. So the only way we're getting our information is through the few podcasters that are getting one of 24 seats in this courtroom. They have to line up every single day, not only for the morning session, but for breaks and afternoon sessions. They have to reform the line. So what's happened now after a week or so is that people have volunteered to be line sitters for them so that they can get a little break, get a little sleep, go to the bathroom, get something to drink. So thank God for that. But one of them pointed out, that this guy worked at CVS. Richard Allen worked at CVS Pharmacy. And this is a very small town, less than 3,000 people. Not one person came forward and said, hey, that guy that works at CVS, he looks like the bridge guy. Nobody said that, which I find very interesting. And it's a great point. Great point. But where did the white man come from? Well, we're going to learn that he lived on White Man Street or Drive, right? White Man Drive. So whoever entered this, whoever filled out this form, just filled it out wrong. And of course, all the witnesses are like, oh, no, it wasn't me. I didn't make that mistake. Wasn't me. So it was filed under White Man. So, when she finds this tip, she brings it to the attention of, I think at this time it was Detective Liggett. Detective Liggett was running for sheriff in October of 2022. More to come on that. So the next person on the stand was an officer, a conservation officer with the Department of Natural Resources. They are sworn law enforcement officers, although their beat, so to speak, is the forest. fishing licenses, hunting licenses, you know, things that happen on the property in the woods, I guess. Although where the bodies were found was private property. It belonged to uh, a person by the name of Logan. So this conservation officer did the original interview back in 2017. He's the person that got the tip and was tasked with following up on the tip. So he did the initial interview with Richard Allen. So he contacts Richard Allen and says, you know, hey, can we meet up? And um, didn't have him come to the police station or anything like that. I think they met at the grocery store and sat and talked. So Richard had said that he was on the trail from 1 to 3, and I think in his original tip he had said 1:30 to 3:30. So, oh my God, he changed his times. So he said he saw 3 girls at the Freedom Bridge. So I want to show you again um, the map so we can kind of have a little perspective here. Okay, let me get to the map. Where's the map? Hold on. That's not it. I'll get there. I'll get there. Okay, this one actually, no, that's not going to work. Let's go to the next one. Hold on. Oh, that's not going to work. I had the map. Where did it go? All right, here we go. Is it going to come up? It's being finicky. Ah, here we go. I think we can get it this way. These are other pictures of the Monon High Bridge. There, you know, there's it's so scary. This is a old railroad crossing. Where did the map go? The one that I was using. All right. Well, this one will work. This one will work. Okay. You can see here where the bodies were found over here. The Monon High Bridge is actually like right here. This is the High Bridge Trail. It starts, well, somewhere over in here is a thing called the Freedom Bridge. So Richard Allen is saying over here in this area, he says he parked at the Farm Bureau building, but he may have been mistaking that for the old CPS building, but we're not sure. He said he parked at the Farm Bureau building and that he backed in. Like, I don't know why that's important. Lots of people back in. But so as he's entering the trail, he sees 3 girls that are leaving the trail. Now, he proceeds on and he gets over to the Monon High Bridge here over where it goes over the creek. He doesn't go over the bridge. He just goes to the first platform. He says he's looking at the fish and then he turns around. He did have his phone with him, but he said he was looking at the stock ticker while he was hiking. So this is consistent with 2 of the witnesses. 2 witnesses were in a group of 3 girls, and their testimony was they were entering the trail here at the Freedom Bridge and passed a man they were leaving the trail and passed a man that was entering. So likely Richard Allen saw those 3 girls, the 2 of which have come forward to identify him or attempt to identify him. So that's pretty consistent. So one of the things this conservation officer did was he wrote down the MEID number of Richard Allen. I'm going to stop sharing that screen there. I hope that was helpful. Oh, we're back to the circle. Okay, I'm playing with the circle. So he wrote down the MEID number of this phone in case, later on somebody wanted to follow up on this with the phone. He actually doesn't recall this conversation that he had with Richard Allen. So in September of 2022, the person who is now Sheriff Liggett asked him, do you recall having a conversation with Richard Allen? And he didn't, but he said, let me check my binder. So he checks his binder, and he uses the database that was available to him to look up Richard Allen. And what this database is it's licenses, fishing licenses, hunting licenses. He finds, I don't know how any of this is relevant. He finds that I know how it's relevant. Richard and his wife applied for online. You do it online. You just apply for the hunting license. You have to fill out a description of yourself. They described whoever filled it out, could have been him, could have been his wife, described him as being 5'4" and a certain weight. And then when they reapplied for the license sometime later, they changed the height to 5'6", and the weight was down by 15 pounds. Okay. Is that evidence of guilt? I don't know. So we put lead detective Mullen back on the stand. Now, because he's the lead detective, he's going to be on and off the stand often, just so they can chronologically tell the story. So Detective Mullen takes the stand again, and what he figured out what vehicles this Richard Allen had at the time. And one of them was a Ford Focus. So he goes and he pulls the surveillance they already had it. The surveillance footage from the Hoosier Harvest Store, which is very close to the entrance to the Mona and High Trail Bridge. But it only covers one of the entrances. And this is how they've identified different vehicles, witness vehicles, things like that. So they do see a car that meets the description of Richard Allen's vehicle. And apparently Richard Allen had these rims on his car that were not stock. They were maybe an upgrade. And the vehicle on that surveillance had the same rims. So their conclusion was, that's Richard Allen's vehicle. And he starts referring to it during his testimony as Richard Allen's vehicle, which was objected to and sustained. The judge actually sustained a defense objective. He was not allowed to call it Richard Allen's vehicle, a vehicle matching the description of Richard Allen's vehicle. So let me just see what I've missed here. So Detective Mullen goes to CBS and picks up Richard Allen and brings him in for a second interview. And he tells the same story, basically, that he told to the conservation officers. That's basically it. So the podcasters that I've listened to said there was a lot of objections during this testimony, to the point, and they were all sustained, state objections were sustained, to the point where it's starting to become obvious to the jury, or it should be starting to come obvious to the jury, that the state is trying to keep something from them. What are they hiding? Are they hiding the ball? What are they not telling us? That kind of thing. So Then we had Sheriff Liggett on the stand. Sheriff Tony Liggett. In 2017, he was a detective. Now he is the sheriff. So let me see. Sheriff Liggett testified that he listened to the video that Libby took on the Monon High Bridge. It's a 40-second video. This is where they picked out the minutia of this video that was Bridge Guy, blew it up, enhanced it, and they're calling this the Bridge Guy. So this is a 40-second video. He said he listened to it over and over, at least 100 times, which is interesting because the jury is only going to, they've already seen it. And if they want to see it again during deliberations, they're only going to be allowed to see it another time, unless it's sent back with them with a scrubbed computer. I don't know how that's going to work, but he's listened to it 100 times. And here's what he heard. Now, I don't think this is appropriate, frankly, because it's his opinion. The jury should be allowed to formulate their own opinion about what they're hearing on this video. But nonetheless, he's allowed to testify. So what he hears is Abby saying, "Is he right here?" And then you hear another girl saying, "Don't leave me up here," probably Libby. Then someone else saying, "See, this is the path. That be a gun." Then also a female, "There's no path here." Then you hear a man say, "Guys, down the hill." And he heard a gun rack. You know, when the sound that it makes when you, I don't know, you know what I mean, rack a gun. I'm not a gun enthusiast. I don't own one. The only time I've ever owned a gun is when my ex-husband, I'm sorry, I'm squirreling here. He bought me a gun for Christmas. He was a cop. He bought me a gun for Christmas. I was like, oh, Merry Christmas. I get a gun. I hated the thing. Anyway, that's what he thinks he heard. He talked about the vehicle being backed into the parking lot, like this is some kind of big deal. So at this point, he feels like he's got enough information to ask a judge for a warrant to search Richard Allen's home, and he gets it. He gets the warrant. Goes to search his home, finds a Sig Sauer handgun in the nightstand, finds a .40 caliber Winchester unspent cartridge. In other words, it hasn't been fired, the bullet, in a keepsake box. And this happens to match the bullet that was on the scene. Now, it was a hollow point. The bullet found on the scene between the bodies was also a .40 caliber Winchester hollow point. But later on, we're going to hear that those two bullets could not be compared. Like, there's no lot numbers on them. You don't know if they came from the same box. There's no way to tell that. They found a blue Carhartt jacket, tons of knives, and they had pictures of them all, including box cutters. And then they found 16 phones. Interestingly enough, none of those phones and pagers, this guy kept everything apparently, but the MEID number that was recorded by the conservation officer, that phone was not among the 16 phones that they found. Now, he also testified, he admitted that in October 2022, he was running for sheriff. And he was asked, wouldn't have getting elected or wouldn't making an arrest have impacted your getting elected. It would have looked really good. And of course, that was objected to. So he would have made, or he is making, $50,000 more to once he was elected. That's pretty darn good. So, change of subject, those sticks that I told you about that were on the bodies, he believes they were for concealment. There were sticks. They weren't hiding the bodies. Anyway. Then they talked about tension between the sheriff's department and the FBI. Apparently, in 2019, the sheriff's department dismissed the FBI, released them. He said, no, there was no tension between us and the FBI. If we needed their help, they would come back in on the investigation anytime. I'd like to hear more about that. I really would. So we learn that there is no DNA, zero DNA from the crime scene. They seized his vehicle, by the way. They seized his vehicle. And there was no blood in the vehicle when they seized it. Zero blood. Now, 5 years have gone by, but so we may have cleaned it several times. Maybe that's the explanation. I don't know. But no blood in the vehicle. Zero DNA from the vehicle. Zero DNA from the crime scene. Nothing that ties Richard Allen to this murder. I could tell you the only thing that ties Richard Allen to this murder is that unspent cartridge, that bullet that was found buried in the ground, covered with leaves between the two dead bodies. There was also no digital evidence because I told you they couldn't find his phone, but no digital evidence. None of the composite sketches looked like him. No one identified him. There's no digital evidence. And then there was no preparatory behavior. So nothing to indicate he might have been preparing to commit these murders. And I mean, here's an interesting observation. If you have this guy he's probably in his 40s, I think he's late 40s, who's gone his entire life with no run-ins with the law, clean criminal record, goes out one day, murders 2 girls, and then for the next 5 years doesn't commit any, lives another clean life. No run-ins with the law, nothing. Interesting, huh? Am I missing anything? Oh, the other thing, there was some clothes missing, according to the law enforcement. There were some clothes missing. So they dug up his yard and they didn't find anything. So then the next person on the stand is Jerry Hallman. He is an investigator with the Indiana State Police who were assisting with the investigation. So he was part of the people that went out and searched the home, and he made an observation that Richard Allen had said, "It doesn't matter, it's over. It's over." And then he showed the gun, the 6 hour, to the jury. So, where are we? Okay, we're at 30 minutes. I'm going to stop there. In the next episode, we're going to talk about the firearm and this bullet and how this all came to be concluded that this was Richard Allen. So I hope to see you in the next episode. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.